and welcome to Alan's Italy. Gee, I was just looking at that introduction and I just never get tired of it. Unbelievable. It's quite amazing. Anyway, tonight we are going to be looking at another area of Tuscany. Remember, we started this a couple of weeks ago and we were talking about what I refer to as Central Tuscany. And tonight we're going to be talking about Eastern Tuscany, which is a really beautiful area, probably my favorite area of Tuscany. And since we're going to start the tour in my friend Luca's town, Figline Valdarno, I'm going to be calling him to ask him a few questions, and maybe he could set us off on the right foot in terms of that region. First, I really feel I have to spend a couple of moments saying something unrelated to the show, of course. The Woodstock community yesterday was given the news that we had lost a neighbor and friend and great music icon, and certainly a very important part of the Woodstock community, Mr. Levon Helm. And I did not know Levon. I've heard from many people that he was a wonderful man, and it's a great loss for the community. And personally, we kept putting it off and saying we want to go to the Ramble, and we never did. We kept saying, well, maybe next week, and we would try, and then it would be, booked up. So we didn't actually do it. So now that's, of course, a moot point. But I did get the opportunity a few months ago. I don't remember when this was. It could have been it was definitely last year, but it could have been last summer, when there was a ceremony for Happy Traum on the village green, where he was presented to the key to the city or something like that, key to the town. And Levon was there, and he wasn't playing drums, he was playing guitar, and it was just wonderful. You get this chill that goes through you when you get to see an iconic figure like that. So, and when I first started playing the guitar, one of the first songs I learned how to play was "The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down." So, and I loved all their songs, and I just wanted to say to his family that certainly Alan's Italy sends its condolences to them, and it's a horrible, sad time, and hopefully in time, those the horrible moments that they're now experiencing will be replaced by all the wonderful, warm memories of Levon. So, okay. That said, I'd like to talk a little bit now about on that sour note. Now I'm a little depressed, but let me go to. Let's see if we could see some beautiful sights of Italy to kind of get me out of the mood. Eastern Tuscany. Eastern Tuscany, as you could see, is very different from where we've been. And I have these two pictures that I threw in from the previous two shows we did on Central, what I call Central Tuscany. You'll notice the landscape in Central Tuscany. And that's one picture of it. This is a really better picture of it. And you could see that it is a land of rolling hills and no real mountains, except those ones in the background, which are actually one of the mountains in Tuscany, known as Monte Amiata, which is just south of the Val d'Orcia area. But other than that, Tuscany is pretty much rolling hills, as you see there. So if you go back to this picture, you can see that Eastern Tuscany, I think I have a better picture without that logo there. Yeah, here we go. This is what Eastern Tuscany looks like. It's mountainous. It's not a wine-producing area because, it's not conducive to that, but it's a very, very beautiful area of, and it's pretty much east-southeast of Firenze, Florence. And again, looking at our map, we see in green what Tuscany looks like in relation to the rest of Italy. I've showed this, many times when we've been talking about this. And this is the makeshift map that always cracks me up a little because I just kind of drew this and I'm not really an artist. but this is a map showing you the different areas of Tuscany that we've spoken about. At the very bottom is what I call southern Tuscany, which is the town of Pitigliano. And then right in center, number 2, is the area we spent 2 shows on 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago. And tonight we're going to be looking at region number 3. I call it the Casentino. It's really what I'm going to be referring to tonight as Eastern Tuscany. But this is the map that's going to show us the route that we're going to take. This really parallels a trip that Laura and I took with our friend Randy and her son David in 2010. And we started at the very lower left-hand corner there. You see Figline Valdarno. That's the town where my friend Luca lives. And we started out visiting with him, and that'll be part of tonight's show. And then we head northeast towards the town of Saltino, and then right next to there is a monastery that I wanted to see called Vallombrosa. Then we go through the Passo di Consuma, and then we go around and head south again to towards Poppi. But on the way, Luca takes us to a beautiful castle called the Castello di Romena, and then to Poppi, and that's the tour that you will be seeing tonight. To get more background, we are going to once again call my friend Luca. He's waiting for this phone call, I hope. Okay, and I'm using my calling card. Oh, do I have to dial 9, right? Alan, I have to dial 9? Yeah, that's what I did wrong last time also. Okay, maybe I'll learn by the next phone call.
Please enter your card number.
To choose from, press the pound key now to hear more.
You may dial now.
Okay, here we go. Okay, now it's 11:15 in Figline Valdarno, and hopefully
your card has 1,150.
That's domestic minutes.
Minutes remaining. You have 46 minutes of call.
See the difference?
For the international number you dial, you can buy. Check
Oh, okay, all right.
prepaid card dialing.
Okay, he should be picking up the phone.
Tim, messaggio gratuito. Il cliente da lei chiamato non è al momento raggiungibile. La invitiamo a riprovare più tardi. Grazie.
Tim, free message. The customer you have dialed is unavailable at the moment.
You're kidding.
Please try later.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to try again right now. I'm sorry about this, but he's supposed to be waiting for this. Okay, let's try that again. If this doesn't work, we could try in a few minutes, but...
Your card has 1.
Oh, here we go again. Sorry about this. You have 46 minutes. Yes, I know. So wonderful. Keep telling me that. Maybe I'll do it eventually.
Tim, messaggio gratuito.
Okay. So obviously this is not working. Okay, so anyway, we're going to start anyway and get involved in this, and then I'll try again maybe in a few minutes. But this is Luca, of course, and if we ever get him on the phone, he will take us on a little oral tour, at least, of some of the places that we're going to be visiting. This is the town that he lives in. So we start our tour at a town by the name of Figline Valdarno. And the Valdarno part simply means that this is a town on the Arno River. Valdarno means on the Arno, and Figline is the name of his town. And this is the central square, which I like very much. This is a beautiful central square. It has arcades, as you could see, around the periphery, and stores, and it's very lively, especially at night. And the next few pictures will be showing you pictures of his town. This is another view of the main square. It's a very pretty town. I've always liked it. It doesn't have much elevation, so you're not going to get these magnificent views from some of the towns we've been to, like Montepulciano. This is a tower that we took. This is the Leaning Tower of Figline Valdarno. Now you may say, wait a minute, I thought that there was a Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? And that's what I thought until we were walking around the town, and Luca suddenly turned to me and said, Alan, would you like to see the Leaning Tower of Figline Valdarno? And I said, is this a joke? And he said, no. And he took us to this, and you can't quite see it at this angle, but it does lean. And we didn't quite get that angle right there. But many, many campanile, which is the bell tower that's attached to the church, lean because of, these churches and these towers are hundreds of years old. And, and they're built into ground that sometimes shifts around, and sometimes you lose this and it starts to shift a little. The worst case, of course, is the famous Leaning Tower of Pisa, which if left alone would have fallen, but they've done some engineering work. This is a church, and there's it looks like a church with some store on the right side there. It's really, sometimes these Italian places are weird because they get commercial. This is another view of the town. That's Luca over there on the right, and those are my legs. So he's standing. He's young. As an old guy, I'm sitting down after a day of sightseeing. But the buildings are very beautiful. This is as dawn as dusk is coming on, and you could see that it's a pretty town. This is the main church, and we're going in there to look at a piece by, I believe, Fra Angelico. This is a town that was the birthplace of a famous humanist by the name of Marsilio Ficino, who was born in 1433. He worked for the Medicis, and he was a very famous humanist who was actually born in this town and wound up living, of course, in Florence. Laura took some doors, and this town has its share of really beautiful doors. So, we did some of those. I like to throw in a few doors here and there. This is a door to to a monastery, and that door actually leads to the cloister in the middle. The cloister is like it's kind of like a garden area right in the middle. You walk into the church, and then off to the side is a very peaceful area where the priest and the monks kind of hang out for peace and quiet and relaxation, and they're usually very beautiful. I'll try to show a few of those in subsequent shows. This is another door. This is a very beautiful door, obviously. And we're back to Luca, and I'm going to give it one more chance. So please bear with me. I know this is sort of a waste of time, but here we go. We'll see how fast I could do this. Okay, here we go.
Your card has
Here we go again.
1,001.
Incidentally, what I'm dialing is 011 is the access number out of the United States. 39 is the country code, and 339 is the code for his actual cell phone. Okay.
.com/prepaid card. Dialing.
Here we go.
Tim, messaggio gratuito. Il cliente da lei chiamato non è al momento raggiungibile. La invitiamo a riprovare più tardi. Grazie.
Tim, free message. The customer you have dialed is unavailable at the moment.
That's it. So we're not gonna. We may try later, but this is it. I'm gonna have to wing it on my own, which I will try to do. And I assume that this might be the case. So I asked Luca for information about his town, and he sent me the information right here. So let me just tell you a little bit about Luca's version of Figline Valdarno. See, you got to be prepared for situations like this. So I'm gonna just read it exactly verbatim to the way he wrote it to me. Figline, as you know, is in a strategic position in the middle of the triangle, Firenze, Siena, which is to the west, and Arezzo, which is to the south. The first news of the castle of Figline Valdarno dates back to the year 1000. In fact, in 2008, we celebrated the 1,000 years of city life. The inhabitants came down several times in the valley and founded the Great Forum, the kind of market where now there is a central square. About 1200 begins the internal divisions between the Guelphs and the Ghibellines. This was a conflict that took place between the Pope's forces, which were the Guelphs, and the forces of Firenze and many of the Tuscan areas, who were called the Ghibellines. So this occupied much of, I believe, the 13th century, or the 1300s, not totally sure of the exact date. Figline claimed the Ghibellines of Arezzo. Because of that, the Republic of Florence completely destroyed the castle. I guess at the time, the Florentines were allied with the Guelphs, forcing the inhabitants to come down definitely into the valley. The walls that can be still seen at present were built between 1553 and 1575. What else can I say about Figline? Is it a nice place to live? Yes, it is. According to a special classification, this town is 22nd in the entire country of Italy as a desirable place to live, and number 2 in Tuscany for quality of life, including healthcare, education, transportation, the public green, public spaces, criminality, and unemployment. So that's the town that we just looked at. And now the next scene will be a scene of Luca and me sitting in the main square. This is just before we were about to get on the road. And this is the night before when we actually had dinner at Luca's house. And Mary and Luca had set the table, as you see. And we were just about to sit down to eat. There's a very lovely picture of Mary and Laura. And that's a picture of, on the left is Luca's daughter, Greta, and on the right is Mary's daughter, Mary Christina, whose nickname is Cree. And of course, the gentleman in the middle who looks extremely happy is our friend David, Randy's son, whom we love very much. Okay, this is actually a little video of Luca. I'm going to do this a little bit because this is Luca trying to explain to me, and I think I once showed this many weeks ago, that he's very bad at speaking the English language, and I just thought you might, you know, at least you could listen to how he sounds.
Yeah, I could do
good in Italian, literatura, but not numbers and no.
Language. What else do you speak besides Italian and English?
No, I speak Italian only. Well, English, few words. Better French.
Come on.
Better French.
Better at French than English?
Better, yes. It's better.
How can your English be better than it is? You tell me.
Because it's something that I would like to learn better than now. It's not.
Does that sound?
Because I can understand everything, but sometimes it's difficult for me, maybe because I don't have friends that, I mean, not Anglophone, not friends,
yeah.
Anglophone, you know, I just speak few English and use only few words every day at work when I am in the mountain. So,
Alan.
making a little video. So.
You're making a video?
Yes.
How long have you been doing this?
Okay.
A minute or
That's,
two.
you know, that's him explaining his difficulty speaking English, which he speaks, of course, perfectly. All right, let's get on with the tour. So we begin leaving Figline Valdarno the next morning, and you know, there's from left to right, that's Mary, David, Luca, me, and Randy. The picture is being taken by Laura, and we're about to get on the road. And my instructions were, you know, Luca stuck his head out the window. I remember this moment exactly. And he said to me, "Alan, follow me, and you will not get lost." And I said to him, "Drive slowly." So off we went through the area of Tuscany known as, you know, it's Eastern Tuscany. And I think it's the area known as the Casentino. One of the questions I was going to ask Luca, which I didn't research on my own, was what's the difference between the Casentino and the Prato Magno, which are the two areas that kind of in Eastern Tuscany. And we passed through some very beautiful scenes on our way to our first destination of Saltino. And this is, you know, some of the scenery that we're seeing along the way. You can see that it's a mountainous region, not like Central Tuscany at all. There was some low-lying clouds. This is, you know, we're driving along the edge of a mountain, and we're coming into the town of Saltino. And he doesn't know much about this town. He simply says it's a holiday resort and probably a place where people go just before they want to visit the abbey at Vallombrosa, which we'll come to in a few minutes. But this is Saltino, and it's a pretty town. You know, there's the ubiquitous bell tower right there attached to the church. And this was somebody's villa. And Luca did not know, you know, whom this belonged to, but, you know, this is Saltino. It had beautiful streets. It was a very peaceful town, and there wasn't much going on. This is, you know, one of the beautiful streets. And then we're back on the road and headed actually slightly to the east at this point. And you can see how beautiful the scenery is, going past these beautiful houses with the scenery in the background. And eventually we come up to the monastery at Vallombrosa. And I have a few details of this that I actually got on my own. Vallombrosa is an abbey that was built in 1038. Imagine that. 1,000-year-old monastery, which is a famous monastery in Eastern Tuscany because it was visited by Wordsworth, by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, by Mary Shelley. And it's mentioned in Milton's Paradise Lost, the famous novel by Milton, and he mentions this abbey. So this is pretty famous, and that's all I was able to really come across. You know, we did a little sightseeing. We were not really here for the monastery so much as the views, but you could see that it's very beautiful grounds, very manicured. And we just kind of strolled around the grounds. That's the main building. A beautiful arched doorway that leads from the inner courtyard to the outside. Another view of it. It was a stunning day, as you could see. The sky was very blue. And we're off on the road. And this is the real reason why I was eager to come to the monastery at Vallombrosa, because we were going to see some spectacular views. And this is one of them. And you could see that this is really a stunning area of Tuscany. It's not quite the mountainous, the magnificent mountains of the Dolomites, but this is a very beautiful area. And you could see more views here. There's the road winding through. But you could see that you don't see those vineyards, some of which that we saw in Central Tuscany and that we will be seeing next week when we travel through Chianti. But the scenery was just magnificent. Now you could see that the grass is green. This is October. So as opposed to most of those scenes from Central Tuscany when the trips were taken in January, this is a little more you know, you could see that this is, the scenery was a little better because of the time of the year. But, you know, you're pretty high up in the mountains, and you're getting some spectacular views. Look at that one. And, you know, riding around with Laura usually involves me driving, and suddenly Laura will say, stop right here, you know, and I got to find a place to stop. We pull over, she takes the picture, and, you know, I'm following Luca, so there were times when, you know, I'd look forward and he was just gone around the bend, so he'd have to backtrack, realizing that we weren't with him anymore. I'd call his cell phone and ask him, you know, what's going on here. And there's, you know, another beautiful view. Look at that magnificent view over there. So that was this part of the trip, was just kind of, you know, riding around through these beautiful mountainous areas. And, you know, I had probably twice as many pictures that I've had to pare down over the past week because there were just too many pictures. But, you know, how do you remove any of these? So it's really difficult to do that. And we're about to enter our first destination. You see those beautiful cypress trees that we've been seeing over the past few weeks. This is the Castello di Romena. And I have some information here from Luca and also that I got from the internet. And I'll read what he wrote. The first news of Castello di Romena date back to 1088. So again, another, you know, 1,000-year-old site, when it was the residence of Count Guido Alberto from Spoleto. In the 12th century, the castle passed to the Counts Guido from Poppi, where we're headed in a few minutes. And Dante lived in the castle for some time during his exile. You know, Dante was exiled from Florence when the winds, you know, the winds of change would constantly take place in Florence. Even the Medicis were expelled during the early part of the 16th century. So Dante was exiled, but, you know, Dante never returned. Dante wound up in the town of Ravenna and stayed there, and that's where he died and is buried. And despite the fact that the Florentines have tried very, very hard to get his body back again, because he really is a native Florentine and wrote most of his famous works in Florence, he's not buried in Florence, although in front of the Church of Santa Croce, there is a statue in his honor. And this is the castle that we're going to be exploring during the next few minutes. This is a beautiful castle. It's not your traditional castle, you know, what you expect. It's a little different. This is the view you get from the castle, though, so this is another destination that Luca wanted us to see because it's really quite beautiful from there. But these are the grounds of the castle. This is a better view of the castle in the background. And remember, this is 1,000 years old, so it's probably in a state of disrepair. We did not go in the castle. We stayed on the outside of the grounds, but you can see here, this is the signpost when you pull up down the main road. This is the Castello di Romena, and that XI, of course, means the number 11 in Roman numerals, and secolo means century. So this is from the 11th century. It's private property. I won't read that whole thing to you, but it gives you the opening and closing hours there as well. And I know some of those words. Marzo, of course, means March, and Giovedì, I believe, is Friday. You know, this tells you the hours. Anyway, this is the view you get from the grounds of this magnificent castle. And I'm not sure how old these trees are, but, you know, obviously they're hundreds of years old, perhaps. And this is what the castle grounds looked like as we drove through it. This is the group as we begin to walk around the castle grounds. And you can see that, you know, when you come to these spots, the turrets, you get this magnificent view, which we did quite a lot of. And this is what we would see, but from the opposite angle, because now we're looking from the road to the church, to the castle. And this place had a lot of cats who were not pleased with our presence. As you can see, this cat does not look happy because we're kind of interrupting his tranquility. But these cats had quite a lovely ground. You could see the ivy-colored walls there in the background. We'll see some more, even more stunning sights. Look at that house, completely covered with red ivy. And that's the view from that spot, looking in the opposite direction. Again, another view of the cypress trees. Another view of one of the cats who was about to leave the grounds because they've just about had enough of us. And that's where the cat was headed, somewhere in that direction. A close-up view of the castle. And look at that building. This was a building that we must have taken about 100 pictures of because it was so spectacular looking. That's another view of, I don't know if that's the same one or a different one, but it was just magnificent. And, you know, this was kind of an area known as a borgo. You know, a castle was the area that people went to for protection, but the area where the townspeople kind of lived was called the borgo. And this is what that was. These are where the regular people lived, many of whom probably worked in the castle. And this is a view of a building with the ivy-covered walls. More views of the castle grounds. A view of Luca standing right in the middle there with beautiful flowers. Which, you know, Laura got a real close-up view of, as she is wont to do. And look at that building. This is one of the main buildings of the castle, completely covered in beautiful leaves, ivy. And Laura and I, with the view behind us, and Luca and Mary walking down the lane, and another view of the grounds. And we're leaving the castle now in the distance, heading down the road towards our next destination. Whoop! One more view of that building, yet another view. I think these were buildings that, you know, we were passing on the way out of the church, of the castle. I keep calling it a church. And one final view of the Castello di Romena. And now we're on the road heading towards our next destination, which is the town of Poppi, where I have some more information. We'll get to that in a moment, though. Here's the castle of Poppi, and this castle is from 1191, and this again was the Guidi family who owned the castle as well, also owned the town of Poppi. And this was built in 1191, but later on in the millennium, it was added onto by the famous Arnolfo di Cambio. And he was the person who designed the Palazzo Vecchio in Florence. And if you remember the Palazzo Vecchio, and I just thought of this, you know, as I was about to leave my house today, but I would have put in a picture of the Palazzo Vecchio that we saw when we were doing Florence. But this is, you know, looks exactly like the Palazzo Vecchio to a very large extent. Not totally, not the replica of it, but certainly very close to looking like that. And this was a beautiful town. This is one of the destinations I told Luca I always wanted to see. And he took us here. And that church at the very end over there, I believe that's a church. Let me do one more picture. This is what a street looks like. with the church in the back. This is the main gate going into the town. You know, and you can see that no matter how beautiful the town is, there are always a lot of cars around because that's the way it is nowadays in Italy. Everybody's, you know, trying to get to see these beautiful sights. But you could see the beautiful arched arcades on the left and right to protect from the rain, and there were stores all along the side, and this beautiful church indicating the time up there is 3 o'clock. And this church is the church of Madonna del Marbo, and in this church is a painting by Filippino Lippi. So we went in to see that, and you can see the altar is just beautiful in this church. There's another. We came outside and looked at, you know, one of the towers up close, and this church had some of the most beautiful stained glass that I've ever seen. So, you know, we spent a lot of time in this church with Laura photographing it. Look at this magnificent organ with the beautiful picture in the background, the beautiful stained glass in the background. Yet another one. Stunning colors. And Laura, being a stained glass artist, you know, really appreciated that to a very large extent. This is more scenes from Poppi. We had lunch here. I didn't put pictures of that because there was nothing special. It was just a bar kind of place, cafeteria. But as you could see, beautiful archways through the buildings. A very pretty town. And Luca told me that he has relatives who live here. The town is also known because one of the most famous zoos in all of Italy, the Zoo Fauna Europa, which is south of town, is a zoo which houses endangered species of Europe. And two of the endangered species are the Apennine wolf and the lynx. We didn't get time to go there, and you'll see a scene in the near future where we're trying to make a decision. Remember, it's after 3 o'clock now because that clock told us that it was after 3. Okay, this is I like this view because it's a view of the castle, and in the foreground is the modern city with, of course, you know, tennis courts in the foreground. So this is, you know, a perfect blend of the modern and the medieval, which occurs in many Italian towns. There's a close-up view of it in the background. This is a building in Poppi. More beautiful scenes with all the arches around. More scenes of some of the streets. And this was the big decision. So, you know, Laura was part of this little chat here that we had, but then she backed off and said, I must take a picture of this because we were having this big argument. And, you know, if you look closely, we all look very tired because we've been on the run now since the morning. It's now probably about 4 in the afternoon. And the big decision that we were making was to go on to the town of Bibbiena, which I was very interested in seeing. When I told Luca what I wanted to do, I said, I want to go to Vallombrosa, I want to go to Poppi, and I want to go to the town of Bibbiena, which is another beautiful town. But remember, it's like 4 in the afternoon, and there's no way to get back from Bibbiena to Figline Valdarno by crossing the mountain. We would have had to go back the way we came. So if we left at this moment, it would take us at least an hour to get back to Figline Valdarno. And then Luca had these big plans for us to go out to dinner, not in his town, but in another town. So this was a very difficult situation here, and we're all talking about it. And the decision, was go to Bibbiena or go home and have dinner. And in a few seconds, we would decide that we were going to leave and go to dinner. So we did that, and we went back to the hotel. And the hotel was nothing special, so I don't have pictures of that. But that evening, I told Luca in the early evening, I said, let's eat in town because it's really, riding along the roads are so difficult because, you know, driving through the hairpin turns, and I'm not very good at negotiating this, and I've never driven at night. So he said, well, we'll start out early, so it's still the light, light, and that'll be good. And again, follow me, and I will drive very slowly, and you'll have no trouble at all catching up with me. So we went to the town of Cavriglia, which was about a half hour south of Figline Valdarno. And we wound up at this really wonderful restaurant, Ristorante Passo Saleno. This picture is taken by Randy, so she's missing from the picture. But, there's me on the left side, and going clockwise is Laura, Luca, Mary, and who entered this particular situation is Mary Christina. Greta couldn't go because she was in the middle of doing homework, which was, the good and the bad was, the bad was she couldn't join us. The good is that Luca was pleased that she was staying home to do homework. But Mary Christina was there, and there's David, and Randy sat just to David's left. And we had this really lovely dinner in this really beautiful restaurant that was relatively empty. And this is some of the food we had. This was, I haven't eaten much today, so this is like I'm looking at this food and saying, oh my God. But this is some kind of a bean dish, obviously. And there were a lot of appetizers being brought out. In fact, Luca and Mary just had appetizers and pasta. We decided that we were going to have appetizers, pasta, and we were also going to order a steak. I'll come to those two guys in a moment. And by the time we got past the appetizer and the primo piatti, which is the pasta, and we had some soup, and we were like stuffed, and I was leaning back in my chair looking like I could not eat another thing, and we had literally about $100 worth of food coming in the very near future. So this guy, the guy on the left is the owner of the restaurant, and the guy on the right was the waiter. And the owner walks up to Luca and whispers in his ear something that I didn't understand because it was in Italian. But Luca then said to me, the owner wants to know if you'd like to cancel the rest of your meal. Now remember, this is like $100 worth of steaks because the four of us were just eating these steaks. Not Luca and Mary Christina, they were finished. But he saw how full we were, and he said, listen, if you want to, you could cancel the rest of your meal, you won't be charged, and it's fine with us. And I was just ecstatic. We all looked at each other, and in unison, we all said to each other, okay, cancel the rest of the meal. I thought this was wonderful. And I wrote this fellow an email when we got back to the United States saying how wonderful it was, and it's an incredible thing. That would never happen. I've never had that experience because you sometimes go to a restaurant, and you have too much food. And, you just have to keep eating because that's the food that you ordered. So I'd like to thank this gentleman again. I forgot his name, but these two guys were great. And we're going back to this restaurant, let's see, it's 4 weeks from tomorrow because we're going to be in Figline Valdarno again, staying at a villa called Villa La Palagina. And Luca will probably want to bring us to this restaurant again. And I'd like to go because I'd like to patronize this fellow's wonderful restaurant. There's Randy and I talking about how great this was. We're both exhausted. And there's the table after the meal was over. And again, another view of this really beautiful little restaurant in a beautiful little town. The town is not really considered in the Casentino area. It's really considered in the Chianti area. And then we're back to the beginning. And the reason why we're a little earlier, finishing earlier than we were supposed to, is that I was supposed to be speaking to Luca for a few minutes. So I'm going to give it one more chance. What do you think? Alan, we think one more chance, right? Yeah. Let's give it one more try. So let me get back to the phone number.
AT&T. Please.
Oh, shoot. Oh, boy. Okay, here we go. See, now it's almost midnight there, so this could be, I don't know what's going on.
Your card has
here we go.
1,000.
Yes, isn't that wonderful? Okay, let's see what happens.
Tim, messaggio
Okay.
gratuito.
I don't know what happened. Anyway, that is the situation that occurred. And let me I have a minute, and I just want to say one thing. Okay, there's Tuscany again. And next week, we're going to be going to the area right over here. This is the Chianti region, which is known for its wine producing. But we will be, traveling from Florence right through this Chianti area. It's a very beautiful area. And that will be that. So I guess, that's it. I don't have much more to say. And so I will say to you, thank you very much for watching. I hope you tune in next week. And buonanotte e buona fortuna.